Earlier this week, the New York Times uncovered a memo that features Trump's new, very important agenda item: tackling affirmative action and taking legal action against schools that apply it. Now, I'll be talking about all the problems with affirmative action today, but before we get to that, let's go back to Trump's plea to black people for a second.
What do you have to lose by trying something new like Trump?
Turns out, if you vote for a dude who dog whistled to white supremacists throughout his campaign, you're slated to lose at least some things. Things like affirmative action are now on the chopping block. Except it's crucial to recognize that this is only going to affect the poor and the marginalized. For the wealthy, it doesn't really matter if you're underqualified. You just toss the school a couple of $1 million and your transcripts become just a formality for admission to top colleges and universities. And let's take a look at Cushman, Jared Kushner, who got into Harvard after his father selflessly gave the school $2.5 million. Now, this pay-to-play arrangement at elite institutions is not exactly a secret amongst the wealthy. College endowments depend more than ever on private donations, since admitting low-income geniuses just doesn't really pay enough for the Scrooge McDuckie and deans to live on. But even when wealthy white people don't legally bribe their way into college, they still have an unfair advantage. Their fallback option is relying on legacy admissions, which give preferential status to applicants with a family connection to the school. But you might say I'm colorblind and a legacy can be of any color, right? Sure, except that it doesn't, and it wasn't until the Brown versus Board of Education in 1954 that schools were mandated to desegregate. And to top that off, that decision was ignored until a decade later when the Civil Rights Act that schools were actually forced to integrate. Basically, legacy admissions is code for, hey white people, you can go to white college because your white family went to white college. Now, if it wasn't already obvious, legacy admissions is a system which perpetuates itself based on prior racial discrimination. And by prior, I mean just recently in history, as in Trump and Jeff Sessions were both still in school during segregation. Obviously, Sessions never really left that era. And now, Sessions, with the help of Trump, is bringing back the good old days, which includes some of the worst policies for black people in recent history.
What do you have to lose? Bye-bye.
Jeffrey Beauregard Sessions III is one of the worst things that happened to black people since Birth of a Nation. While Birth of a Nation made the Klan seem cool and exacerbated racial tensions, at least the film is more than 100 years old, and no one ever really watches it except as an example of how racist as fuck things were back then, whereas Sessions, the nation's most powerful attorney, was deemed too racist to be a judge in the 80s. In the 80s. The 80s were racist as fuck. How racist do you have to be called a racist in the 80s?
I am not a racist.
Jeffrey, the fact that you had to say this during a nomination hearing is already problematic, but turns out all we had to do to see how racist you are was just wait. Since your appointment to Attorney General and part-time White House lawn gnome, you've tried everything in your goddamn power, which is a lot of power, to dismantle the progress we have made thus far in civil rights. Your first act as Attorney General was to reinstate taxpayer-funded, corporate-owned prisons in the US, even though many studies show their lack of efficiency and poor safety standards. Oh, and also, it's inherently unethical and immoral to make money off of incarcerating people. But that controversial reversal was probably to prep for the inevitable increase in the number of incarcerated, since you then restarted the failed war on drugs. That's pretty cool too. You're also advocating for letting law-breaking police off the hook while Trump simultaneously promotes police violence.
Like when you guys put somebody in the car and you're protecting their head, you know, the way you put their hand over, like, don't hit their head, and they've just killed somebody, don't hit their head. I said, you can take the hand away, okay?
This is fucking insane. Guilty until proven innocent, right? And you've even made it harder for defendants to prove their innocence because you've cut back on forensic science, which has proven invaluable in reversing wrongful convictions. But we're the ones who are being divisive, of course. These are the reasons why we need a leveled playing field. Look, let's remember what affirmative action is. It's a policy favoring those who tend to suffer from discrimination. So it isn't a bias that favors blacks, Mexicans, women, or even members of the LGBT population. It just happens that those are the communities that have historically been discriminated against in all aspects of life, including education. If white people were the marginalized group, they would be the beneficiaries of affirmative action. The system isn't perfect, but that doesn't mean it hasn't helped. To equate affirmative action with clear-cut racial discrimination is not only categorically false, it's also an effort to deny the repressive and often violent history of oppression African Americans have historically faced and continue to face today. I'm Hasan Piker. Please share this video with your friends if you think marginalized communities deserve a level playing field. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Hasan D. Piker and on Twitter at Hasan the Hun. And this has been The Breakdown.